The shadow of terror looms over Bran Castle. In the heart of Transylvania, where jagged mountain peaks claw at the sky and a perpetual mist drapes the landscape, there exists a castle unlike any other. Bran Castle, its silhouette stark and forbidding, rises from the rocky cliffs as though nature itself willed it into existence. By day, it is a sight of intrigue and wonder, attracting countless visitors to its ancient halls. But by night, under the glow of a pale, distant moon, the castle transforms into something entirely different. A vessel for the inexplicable, a cradle of whispered horrors. A giant elephant stands in the center of the village, looking down at us. For centuries, Bran Castle has stood as a sentinel, its towering walls bearing silent witness to an endless parade of human folly and suffering. Yet it is not merely a relic of history. Those who dare approach it often speak of a peculiar sensation, a gnawing unease that grows stronger with every step closer. It's as if the castle itself is alive, aware, and watching. Local legends describe Bran Castle as a place where the veil between the living and the dead wears thin. The villagers, many of whom refuse to speak openly about it, are quick to warn strangers of the dangers that await within its walls. The castle chooses its visitors, they say, their eyes darting nervously toward the looming structure. And it doesn't let all of them leave. But what is it about this castle that instills such fear? Is it the centuries of bloodshed and betrayal etched into its stones? The countless lives lost in its dungeons? Or perhaps it is something older, something darker. A force that predates the castle itself. A shadow that has lurked in these hills long before humans dared to build here. The origins of Bran Castle are shrouded in mystery, and its true purpose has been a subject of speculation for generations. Officially, it was constructed in the late 14th century as a fortress to defend against invaders, but local folklore suggests a far more sinister motive. It is said that the castle was built upon sacred, cursed ground, land where rituals were performed to summon and appease ancient, malevolent entities. Some even believe that the castle's foundations were laid not to keep invaders out, but to keep something far worse in. Even now, scholars and paranormal investigators flock to Bran Castle in search of answers. Some come to study its architecture, poring over blueprints and ancient records. Others come equipped with cameras, thermal scanners, and EMF detectors, hoping to capture evidence of the unexplained. But they rarely leave unscathed. A sudden chill in the air, a fleeting shadow on the edge of their vision, an oppressive sense of being watched. These are common occurrences. And while most dismiss them as tricks of the mind, others are not so quick to rationalize. One such investigator described an experience that still haunts him. As he wandered through the castle's winding corridors late one night, he heard a faint, rhythmic tapping. It seemed to be coming from all around him, as though the very walls were alive with sound. Following the noise, he found himself in a small, windowless room. The tapping stopped abruptly, replaced by a deep silence that pressed against his ears like a weight. Then, just as he was about to leave, he heard it again. Closer this time, louder, like the drumming of skeletal fingers on stone. Het! Bran Castle's walls are thick, but they cannot contain the stories that seep through them. Tales of ghostly apparitions, disembodied voices, and inexplicable occurrences abound, passed down through generations of villagers who live in its shadow. There is the story of the Lady in Black, who is said to roam the castle's upper chambers, her mournful cries echoing in the dead of night. Then there is the tale of the spectral hounds, their howls piercing the stillness of the forest that surrounds the castle. And perhaps most chilling of all is the legend of the shadows themselves, dark, shifting figures that move with an intelligence that cannot be explained. But these are just the beginning. Bran Castle holds secrets far darker than any ghost story. The more you learn about it, the more the lines between history and myth begin to blur. and as you step through its heavy wooden doors into its dimly lit halls, you cannot help but wonder, what is it that truly awaits within these walls? Is it the weight of history, the residue of countless tragedies? Or is it something far older, far darker, something that has been waiting for you all along? As you pass through the arched entrance of Bran Castle, the air itself seems to change, becoming dense and heavy. The creak of the ancient wooden doors closing behind you echoes like a distant thunderclap, reverberating down the stone corridors. It feels less like you've entered a historical landmark and more like you've stepped into another world. One where time bends and shadows dance to their own rhythm. The Great Hall, with its soaring ceilings and faded tapestries, looms before you like the set of a Gothic tragedy. The flickering glow of scattered candlelight creates a wavering sea of shadows, and as you move, you can't shake the feeling that something is moving with you, just out of sight. Visitors often report strange sensations in this room, a phantom brush against their skin, the faint sound of a whisper they cannot quite decipher. Some have claimed to hear footsteps pacing above them, though no one else is on the floor above. In one corner of the hall stands an enormous, time-worn mirror. Its glass is tarnished with age, streaked with imperfections that shimmer like veins of darkness. Tour guides will often caution visitors against staring too long into the mirror. It reflects more than just your image, one guide warns, her voice dropping to a near whisper. Sometimes it reflects what you fear most. Skeptical visitors laugh it off. But those brave enough to meet their reflection often leave pale and shaken, swearing they saw something or someone that wasn't there before. Deeper into the castle, the corridors narrow, their walls rough-hewn and cloaked in shadows. The torchlight here is dim, casting elongated shapes that twist and shudder with every flicker of the flame. It is here that the oppressive silence grows heavier, interrupted only by the distant echo of dripping water, a sound that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. One corridor in particular has become infamous among the castle's caretakers and visitors. It is said to be the coldest part of the castle, where the air feels so icy that it bites at your skin. The locals call it the Hall of Sighs for the soft, sorrowful moans that seem to emanate from the walls. No one knows where the sound originates, but many believe it to be the echoes of prisoners who once languished in the dungeons below. Visitors who linger too long in the hall often report a growing sense of dread, as if unseen hands are urging them to leave. Below the castle lies a labyrinth of dungeons and passageways carved deep into the rock. Few dare to venture here, and for good reason. The air is damp and stale, carrying the unmistakable scent of decay. The walls are etched with centuries-old graffiti, desperate carvings left by prisoners who knew they would never see the light of day again. The faint scratching of rats scurrying in the darkness is a constant reminder that this place was never meant for comfort, only suffering. It is said that these dungeons are haunted by more than just the memories of those who perished here. One particularly chilling tale involves the ghost of a woman who was wrongfully imprisoned and tortured to death. Known only as the Wailing Bride, she is said to appear as a translucent figure, her white dress stained with blood. Witnesses have reported hearing her agonized screams, which rise to a deafening crescendo before fading into an eerie silence. But perhaps the most unnerving part of Bran Castle is the feeling that you are never truly alone. Many visitors describe the sensation of being watched, even when they are certain there is no one else around. Others have reported seeing shadowy figures darting around corners or standing at the edge of their vision, only to vanish when they turn to look. Paranormal investigators have recorded strange anomalies here. Unexplained cold spots, sudden spikes in electromagnetic activity, and disembodied voices captured on audio recordings. And then there are the stories that defy all explanation. One caretaker, who worked at the castle for over a decade, described an encounter that still haunts him to this day. Late one night, as he was locking up, he heard the sound of a child's laughter echoing through the halls. Following the sound, he found himself in the castle's nursery, a room long since abandoned. The laughter stopped as soon as he entered, but the toys in the room, an old rocking horse and a set of wooden blocks, began to move on their own. The rocking horse swayed gently as if pushed by an unseen hand, and the blocks slowly spelled out a single word: stay. What is it about Bran Castle that draws so many to its doors, despite the horrors that await inside? Some believe it is the allure of the unknown, the irresistible pull of the supernatural. Others are convinced that the castle itself exerts a kind of influence, drawing people to it like moths to a flame. Whatever the reason, one thing is certain: once you enter Bran Castle, you will never forget it. As you leave the castle and step back into the cold Transylvanian night, the shadows seem to stretch a little longer, the wind whispers a little louder, and the moon casts an eerie glow over the landscape. You might tell yourself it was all just your imagination, that the stories are nothing more than folklore. But deep down, a part of you knows the truth. Bran Castle is not just a place. It is a presence, a living, breathing entity that thrives on fear and feeds on the souls of those who dare to enter its shadow. And as you walk away, you can't shake the feeling that something is following you, a shadow that wasn't there before. You quicken your pace, telling yourself it's nothing, but in your heart you know better. Bran Castle does not let its visitors go so easily. As you make your way down the narrow cobblestone path leading away from Bran Castle, an inexplicable heaviness lingers in your chest, like a dark thread still connecting you to its foreboding halls. This feeling, as some have said, is not merely psychological. There are whispers among locals that Bran Castle leaves a mark, a spiritual residue on those who dare to enter. And for some, this mark does not fade. The castle has long been a nexus for tales of the supernatural, with accounts stretching back centuries. While the architecture itself is a marvel of medieval ingenuity, it is what lies beneath the surface, both literally and figuratively, that has cemented Bran Castle's reputation as one of the most haunted places in Europe. The cursed foundations. The very ground upon which Bran Castle was built is said to harbour a dark and ancient curse. Long before the castle's construction, the site was reportedly a sacred place for pagan rituals. Archaeological discoveries have unearthed strange carvings and relics, many of which seem to depict figures bound in chains, kneeling before shadowy deities. The local folklore suggests that the castle was erected not merely for defense, but to seal off an ancient evil buried deep within the earth. One unnerving legend tells of a group of masons who worked on the castle in its earliest days. According to the story, they began to vanish one by one. At first, their disappearances were blamed on wolves in the surrounding forests, but when their bodies were eventually discovered, their wounds bore no resemblance to wolf attacks. Instead, they seemed to have been mauled by something far larger, with claw marks that raked across stone as easily as flesh. Strangely, the masons' tools were often found untouched, lying precisely where they had fallen, as if the workers had simply been plucked from existence. The keeper of the crypt. Deep beneath the castle lies a crypt that few dare to enter. It is said to house the remains of long-dead nobility, though no records exist of exactly who they were or how they came to rest there. The air within the crypt is thick and damp, suffused with an unsettling odor that many describe as a mix of decay and One particularly chilling tale comes from a group of paranormal investigators who visited the crypt in the 1990s. Armed with state-of-the-art equipment, they set out to capture definitive proof of the supernatural. What they recorded has never been fully explained. Cameras malfunctioned, producing footage distorted by static and shadowy figures. Audio devices picked up an unnerving sound, slow, deliberate breathing, though no one was present. The team's medium, who claimed to be in contact with a spirit calling itself the Keeper, described a figure cloaked in darkness, its eyes glowing like embers. According to her, the spirit whispered only one thing before the team fled in terror: "Leave before I awaken." Forest of Shadows. Surrounding Bran Castle is a dense, sprawling forest that locals avoid at all costs after sundown. Known as the Forest of Shadows, it is said to be a place where the dead roam freely. Many of the trees bear strange, twisting shapes, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal arms. The forest floor is dotted with peculiar mounds that some believe mark unmarked graves. There are even rumors of ancient, unholy rituals performed beneath the canopy, their echoes still lingering in the air. Visitors who venture into the forest often report disorienting experiences. Compasses fail, the trails seem to shift, and the sounds of the forest, chirping crickets, rustling leaves, fade into an eerie silence. One chilling account tells of a traveler who became lost in the forest during a blood moon. He described hearing faint, childlike laughter that seemed to come from every direction. When he finally emerged from the forest at dawn, he found deep scratches on his arms and legs, as if he had been clawed by something unseen. The ghosts of the Great Hall. The Great Hall, the heart of Bran Castle, is a place of grandeur and terror. Its towering ceilings and intricate woodwork exude a timeless elegance, but visitors often report a sinister energy lingering in the air. Many claim to see fleeting apparitions in the hall's massive, centuries-old mirror. These figures, often described as shadowy or translucent, seem to stare back with an unnerving awareness, as if they are studying the living. One particularly infamous encounter involved a young couple who attended a private tour. As they admired the ornate carvings on the hall's wooden table, they both felt a sudden chill. Turning to the mirror, they saw their reflections, but behind them stood a figure dressed in 15th century armor. When they turned to look, the room was empty, but the figure remained in the mirror, its expression slowly shifting into a sinister grin. Unexplainable disappearances. Over the years, several individuals have reportedly disappeared in or around Bran Castle under mysterious circumstances. While most vanishings are attributed to accidents or getting lost in the surrounding terrain, others defy all logic. In one chilling case, a tourist separated from her group was last seen walking toward the castle's infamous tower. When a search party was formed, they found no trace of her. Her belongings were discovered, neatly arranged on the tower steps, but no footprints led away from the scene. The Blood Moon Curse. Among the many legends tied to Bran Castle, none is more terrifying than the Curse of the Blood Moon. Local lore warns that on nights when the moon glows red, the castle awakens in ways that defy comprehension. Doors that were locked tight swing open on their own. The sound of footsteps echoes through the halls, though no one is seen, and the shadows themselves seem to come alive, stretching and twisting as if trying to break free from the walls. One chilling story tells of a caretaker who spent the night at the castle during a blood moon. He described hearing the sound of chains dragging across the stone floors and seeing spectral figures moving through the corridors. When dawn finally broke, he was found outside the castle gates, muttering incoherently about red eyes in the dark. The more you delve into the stories of Bran Castle, the more you realize that its horrors are not confined to history. They are alive and waiting, lurking in the shadows. For those who enter, the castle becomes more than a destination. It becomes a test, a challenge to confront the deepest, darkest fears within. And for some, it is a place they will never escape, at least not entirely. The blood that stains the stone. Bran Castle is not merely haunted by phantoms, it is haunted by history. Its stones are soaked in the blood of countless souls who met their end within its walls. In the 15th century, the castle became a fortress of terror under the rule of Vlad the Impaler. the man whose name would inspire Bram Stoker's infamous Dracula. Vlad, known for his cruel punishments, reportedly used the castle as a prison and execution site. It is said that the screams of his victims echoed through the halls, and their blood flowed freely, staining the stones red. One particularly chilling tale involves a prisoner who cursed Vlad with his dying breath, vowing that the castle would never know peace. Shortly after, strange occurrences began. Guards reported hearing faint, mocking laughter in the dead of night. Fires extinguished themselves without explanation, and livestock within the castle grounds fell ill and died. Though centuries have passed, the curse remains, manifesting in the form of restless spirits and unexplained phenomena. The curse of the unseen staircase. Hidden within Bran Castle is a secret staircase, said to connect the upper chambers to the dungeons below. This staircase, carved directly into the stone, was sealed off centuries ago after a series of unexplained deaths. According to legend, anyone who descended the staircase would never return. Witnesses described hearing frantic footsteps and screams that abruptly stopped, followed by an eerie silence. When the staircase was finally bricked up, workers claimed to hear scratching sounds from the other side, as if something or someone was trying to claw its way out. To this day, the staircase remains a forbidden topic among the castle's caretakers. Some claim that on quiet nights you can still hear faint whispers emanating from the walls where it was sealed. Paranormal investigators have reported inexplicable spikes in activity near the staircase's former location, and visitors have described feeling an overwhelming sense of dread as they pass by. The uninvited guest. One of the most unnerving legends of Bran Castle involves the uninvited guest, a spirit believed to be the castle's most malevolent entity. This spectral figure is described as a tall, shadowy form with no discernible features, save for a pair of glowing red eyes. It is said that the uninvited guest appears only when someone dares to stay in the castle overnight. Witnesses have reported waking in the middle of the night to find the figure standing at the foot of their bed, silently watching. Those who have encountered the uninvited guest describe an overwhelming feeling of paralysis, as though an unseen force is pressing down on their chest. Some have claimed to hear it speak in a low, guttural voice, though the words are often incomprehensible. Others have described being plagued by nightmares for weeks after their encounter, dreams in which the figure beckons them back to the castle. The Forbidden Room. There is a chamber within Bran Castle that remains locked to this day. Known as the Forbidden Room, it is said to have been sealed for over a century, its contents untouched. According to legend, the room was once the scene of a violent exorcism. A young noblewoman, believed to be possessed, was confined there after exhibiting strange and terrifying behavior. Witnesses claimed she spoke in tongues, levitated above her bed, and displayed unnatural strength. The exorcism, conducted by a group of monks, lasted for 3 days and nights. When it was over, the room was sealed and the noblewoman's fate was never disclosed. Those who have attempted to enter the room since have reported feeling an intense wave of nausea and an overwhelming sense of terror, as though they were being pushed back by an unseen force. The Children of the Shadows. Perhaps the most heart-wrenching tales of Bran Castle involve the spirits of children said to roam its halls. These spectral children are often heard giggling or crying, their voices echoing softly through the corridors. Some visitors have reported seeing small handprints appear on frosted windows or feeling a gentle tug on their clothing when no one else is around. One chilling account involves a young girl named Elena who disappeared while visiting the castle with her family in the early 1900s. Though a thorough search was conducted, she was never found. Months later, her parents returned to the castle hoping for answers. While exploring the grounds, they heard their daughter's voice calling to them. Following the sound, they were led to a secluded corner of the castle, where they found her favorite doll lying on the ground. The doll was pristine, as if it had been recently placed there. but Elena was nowhere to be seen, a beacon for darkness. Bran Castle's reputation as a hotspot for the paranormal extends far beyond its walls. Paranormal experts believe the castle acts as a beacon, drawing entities from the surrounding region. Its isolated location, combined with its dark history, creates the perfect conditions for supernatural activity. Visitors have described seeing strange lights in the sky above the castle, hearing unexplained chanting in the forest, and even encountering shadowy figures on the castle's grounds. One particularly terrifying story involves a group of hikers who camped near the castle on Halloween night. They claim to have seen a procession of ghostly figures carrying lanterns, walking in a single file toward the castle gates. The figures vanished as they approached, leaving the hikers shaken and terrified. Eternal nightmares. The most unsettling aspect of Bran Castle is its lingering effect on those who visit. Many report experiencing vivid nightmares for weeks or even months after leaving. These dreams often involve the castle itself, with recurring themes of being lost in its corridors or pursued by shadowy figures. Some visitors have even claimed to wake with unexplained scratches or bruises, as though their nightmares were more than just dreams. One traveler described a recurring dream in which she was locked in a room within the castle. In the dream, she could hear someone or something scratching at the door trying to get in. Each time she had the dream, the scratching grew louder, until one night it stopped. When she opened the door, the corridor beyond was empty, but she felt an overwhelming sense that she was being watched. Bran Castle is a place that defies explanation, a realm where history and legend blur into a tapestry of fear. For centuries, it has stood as a testament to human suffering and the mysteries of the unknown. And for those brave or foolish enough to enter, it offers an experience that lingers long after they leave. Bran Castle does not merely haunt its visitors, it changes them. Once you step through its gates, you are no longer the same person. And though you may leave, a part of you will always remain, forever tied to the shadowy, malevolent presence that lurks within its walls. The halls of forgotten souls. As night falls upon Bran Castle, the vast hallways echo with the sound of footsteps, though no one is there to make them. The air is thick with the weight of history, ghosts of the past that seem to drift through the corridors like memories trapped in time. Even during the day, the castle feels alive with a malevolent energy, as though the very stones are breathing, alive with the souls of those who died in torment. How many have reported hearing strange sounds emanating from the castle's deeper chambers, whispers, scratching, and the occasional scream that seems to pierce through the silence. But when investigators search for the source, they find nothing. Some have speculated that the castle itself is alive, its walls holding the spirits of those who met an untimely death. In the Great Hall, where celebrations once took place, the sound of faint music can sometimes be heard, carried on the wind that sweeps through the open windows. However, there are no musicians, no instruments, just the haunting, ethereal melody that lingers long after the wind has died down. Those who are brave enough to enter report seeing figures in the corner of their eyes, fleeting shadows that flicker and disappear when looked at directly. One particularly disturbing story tells of a man who spent the night in the Great Hall, determined to prove the castle's paranormal reputation false. As he lay in the center of the room, trying to sleep, he began to hear faint whispers, like soft murmurs in an unknown language. He tried to ignore it, but the whispers grew louder, until they felt as though they were coming from all around him. Just before dawn, the man fled, but not before witnessing a figure standing in the shadows near the fireplace. A tall, cloaked figure that seemed to be watching him silently. The tragic history of the castle's inhabitants. Bran Castle is more than just a haunted location. It is a place marked by tragedy, its walls forever echoing with the screams of those who suffered unimaginable fates. The curse of the castle runs deep within its history, touching the lives of everyone who set foot on its grounds. One particularly tragic tale involves the widow of a nobleman who once resided in the castle. After her husband died under mysterious circumstances, the widow, consumed by grief, became obsessed with finding his spirit. She would spend hours each night wandering the castle, calling out to him, hoping to hear his voice again. As time passed, she began to lose touch with reality, speaking to herself and refusing to leave the castle. Eventually, she was found dead in one of the castle's towers, her body cold and lifeless, her eyes wide open in terror. There are whispers that her spirit still roams the halls, searching for her lost love. Some claim to have seen her figure at the window, staring out over the valley below, waiting for her husband to return, but no one has ever seen her again, except in the reflection of the castle's mirrors. The dark power of Vlad the Impaler. At the heart of Bran Castle's dark legacy lies the shadow of Vlad the Impaler, a ruler whose cruelty became infamous across Europe. His reign of terror is the stuff of nightmares, and his name is synonymous with bloodshed. It is said that Vlad would often hold court in the castle, where he would carry out his gruesome acts of punishment. Prisoners would be impaled on long, sharp stakes, left to die slowly and painfully as a display of his power and cruelty. Many believe that the spirits of Vlad's victims still haunt the castle, their anguished cries lingering in the air, reaching out to those who enter. It is said that the sound of metal scraping against stone can sometimes be heard deep within the castle's dungeon, a chilling reminder of the torture and death that once took place within those walls. The most terrifying aspect of Vlad's presence in the castle is his connection to the supernatural. Some have speculated that Vlad was more than just a ruthless ruler. He was a man who dabbled in the occult. There are records that suggest Vlad practiced dark rituals, seeking to summon dark forces to increase his power and terror. These rituals are said to have left a permanent scar on the castle, making it a place of malevolent energy. The haunting of the forests. Beyond the walls of Bran Castle, the surrounding forests add to the castle's already oppressive atmosphere. Known as the Forest of the Damned, the woods are said to be haunted by creatures and spirits that have wandered too far from the castle's grip. Locals are reluctant to venture into the forest, especially after dark, for fear of encountering the twisted shadows that stalk the trees. One unsettling tale tells of a group of travelers who wandered into the forest late one night, hoping to catch a glimpse of the supernatural. As they walked deeper into the woods, the air grew colder and the trees seemed to close in around them. They described hearing the rustling of leaves, but when they turned to look, no wind was blowing. Suddenly they were surrounded by a thick mist, and the faint outline of figures could be seen moving within the fog. The figures didn't seem human, too tall, too slender, and moving with unnatural speed, said the voice. The travelers fled in terror, but not before one of them was dragged away into the mist, never to be seen again. The remaining members of the group returned to the castle, their faces pale and their minds shaken by what they had witnessed. To this day, no one has ventured into the forest again, and the locals insist that the spirits of the lost wander the woods, forever searching for those who will join them. The cursed night of the blood moon. The most dreaded event associated with Bran Castle is the arrival of the blood moon, a rare celestial phenomenon that casts an eerie crimson hue over the landscape. Locals believe that during these nights the castle becomes a portal for dark forces, and the spirits of the damned rise from their graves to seek vengeance. On nights when the blood moon is visible, the castle is said to come alive in a way that is impossible to describe. Doors that were locked suddenly creak open on their own, and whispers fill the halls, too faint to understand but unmistakable in their urgency. Visitors who are brave or foolish enough to stay in the castle during these nights often report feeling an intense sense of dread, as though they are being watched by something that is not human. One particularly terrifying account involves a man who stayed in the castle during a blood moon in the early 2000s. He claimed that as the moon rose in the sky, the atmosphere in the castle changed. The air grew thick and suffocating, and the walls seemed to pulse with a dark energy. He saw shadowy figures moving through the halls, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The man attempted to leave, but the castle doors were locked, and the figure of a woman appeared in front of him, her face twisted in an expression of rage. He screamed as she reached for him, but when he opened his eyes, he was outside the castle, with no memory of how he got there. The unfinished legacy. As the centuries pass, Bran Castle remains a testament to the darkness that resides within. Its shadow lingers over the land, and its haunted halls echo with the cries of those who came before. The spirits that walk the castle's halls seem to have an insatiable thirst for revenge, and the souls of those who perished within its walls remain trapped in the never-ending cycle of torment. But Bran Castle is not simply a place of death. It is a place where the past refuses to die. Its legacy is one of terror and suffering, but also one of dark beauty. For those who venture into its depths, it offers a glimpse into a world that has long since been forgotten. A world where the line between life and death is blurred, and where the shadows never truly disappear. The echoes of forgotten horrors. There are certain places in this world that seem to defy time itself, places where the past is never truly buried, but instead lingers, echoing through the years like the whisper of a ghost calling from the shadows. Bran Castle is one such place. Every stone, every brick, every piece of wood seems to hold the memories of the terror that has unfolded within its walls. Visitors to the castle often speak of the strange sensation they feel when walking through its corridors, like something is watching them, something old and hungry. The feeling isn't just an unsettling one, it's primal, a deep-seated terror that comes from the very core of their being. And many leave Bran Castle with the undeniable sense that they have been touched by something beyond human comprehension. The Watchers in the Dark. Among the most disturbing experiences reported by visitors to Bran Castle are encounters with what are known as the Watchers. These shadowy figures are said to appear only in the darkest corners of the castle, lurking just outside of view. Their presence is felt as a cold chill that creeps up the spine, and when you turn to look, there is no one there, just the lingering sensation of being observed. The Watchers are believed to be the souls of former soldiers who once stood guard over the castle, their duty to protect the walls even in death. It is said that they are restless, unable to leave the castle, forever bound to its stone walls. Some have reported seeing the figures appear in the corner of their eyes, standing just behind them, watching quietly, but never moving. Others claim to have heard the soft shuffle of footsteps trailing behind them as they walked through the castle's empty halls. One account tells of a young woman who spent the night alone in the castle. She described waking in the middle of the night to find the figure of a man standing at the foot of her bed. His face was obscured by shadows, but she could see the glint of metal, a sword at his side. The figure did not move, but the woman could feel his eyes upon her. She tried to call out, but no sound came from her throat. "People have a right to freedom of speech," says she in her home. She puts her arm through hers. When she finally found the strength to turn away, the figure was gone. The castle's bizarre architecture and hidden secrets. Throughout the castle, there are secret passageways that were originally intended as escape routes for the castle's inhabitants. However, these tunnels have long been sealed off, their entrances hidden behind walls or beneath floors. Some say the tunnels were used by Vlad the Impaler himself to escape from enemies or to conduct his cruel acts away from the public eye. But what's more terrifying than their original purpose is the belief that the tunnels still exist, waiting to be uncovered, waiting for someone to enter. One investigator, obsessed with discovering the truth about the hidden tunnels, ventured deep into the castle's bowels, armed with nothing but a flashlight and a sense of determination. He reportedly found a narrow, stone-covered door hidden behind a thick curtain. Behind it, a staircase descended into darkness. Despite the overwhelming feeling of dread that crept over him, he pressed on. The air grew colder as he descended, and his flashlight flickered as if struggling to stay lit. Just as he reached the bottom of the staircase, the beam of light went out completely, leaving him in total darkness. The castle's blood-stained history. The bloodshed that occurred within Bran Castle's walls is not only the stuff of legend, it's a fact etched into the castle's very stones. The castle was used as a prison and torture chamber for countless victims throughout the years. Its dungeons were filled with the cries of the innocent, and its cells became a tomb for those who were unlucky enough to fall into the hands of the brutal lords who once ruled the land. Other accounts tell of the ghostly figures of soldiers who died in battle, their spirits rising from the ground to haunt the castle's battlements. It is said that on stormy nights you can hear the clash of swords and the roar of battle as the spirits of the fallen warriors fight once more, trapped in a never-ending cycle of violence and death. The castle's final secret. Despite all that has been uncovered about Bran Castle, there is still one final secret that remains hidden. A secret so terrifying that even the bravest of souls dare not uncover it. It is said that deep beneath the castle, in a hidden chamber known only to a few, lies an artifact, an object of unimaginable power, a relic from the dark past of Vlad the Impaler. This artifact is believed to hold the key to the castle's curse, but at what cost? Some believe that anyone who dares to find the artifact will be doomed to suffer a fate worse than death. The spirits of the castle are said to protect it, ensuring that no one ever uncovers its dark power. But there are those who seek the artifact, those who believe that they can control the power within and use it for their own purposes. The priest outside the door. But Bran Castle has no mercy for those who seek to uncover its deepest secrets. Those who have attempted to find the artifact have disappeared without a trace, their names lost to history. Some say that their spirits now roam the castle, forever searching for a way to escape the fate they brought upon themselves.